Hello everyone, my name is Marcin Kubacki and today I'm with Simon Cotter, Director of Product Management. We're going to discuss Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager and its options for data protection later. And we'll also discuss a little bit differences between Oracle VM and Oracle, a new offering that comes from Oracle. Okay, Simon, so if you could start.
Yeah, thank you, Marcin. Yeah, as Marcin was saying, I'm part of Oracle, and I'm part of the product management team dedicated to Linux and virtualization solutions. So today I'm going to give you a quick overview of our offerings related to the virtualization, the well-known solution that is Oracle VM, as well as a new solution that we just announced at the beginning of June, that is Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. So what I'm going to talk at the end reflects our general product direction. So there is no commitment from Oracle on what I'm going to show to you during this webinar. So this is our standard safe harbor statement. Yeah, let's introduce Oracle Linux first. Oracle Linux, at the end, we have four main directions or four main targets really for Oracle Linux today. And the first one is related to the cloud. So as you know, Oracle is also a cloud vendor. And Oracle Linux at the end is really a very unique solution because Oracle Linux is the same operating system. And if you want also the same hypervisor or the same container solution that today runs on the Oracle public cloud, on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, but at the same time, you can also run on your own environment on-premise or your own private cloud solution running on-prem. And so this is our main target related to the cloud, grant the same experience both on the public cloud as well as on the private one. That said, another important topic related to Oracle Linux is that we want to leverage Oracle Linux to really accelerate the application deployment and service delivery. And this is something valid for both container solutions, like for example with Docker, as well as the virtualization one. Kernel, it's important to know that Oracle is also a very huge contributor to different open source projects, and one of them is obviously the Linux kernel. If you check on kernel.org, starting from the release 4.15 of the kernel, Oracle at the end is the third contributor for the open source kernel project, open source Linux kernel project. Obviously, it's important to know that on Oracle Linux, we also have our own kernel named Unbreakable Enterprise Kernel, UEK. And this is the kernel that we developed internally at Oracle, but we also released the source code of the same. So again, we are also a contributor related to the kernel. And then security. Security in the latest years is really becoming more and more important. And we think that with Oracle Linux, we also have one unique feature that is related to the option to install security updates for different things, for kernel, for the hypervisor, and even for user space component, without the requirement to reboot or restart the service, reboot the server or restart the service. So install security fixes, kernel, hypervisor, user space, without any kind of impact to the services running on top. Yeah, that said, those were the targets related to Oracle Linux. That said, a quick introduction related to the Oracle Linux ecosystem. So Oracle Linux is not new. We are shipping now for more than 12 years. So it's a project started in 2006. And it's the same Linux operating system that today powers the Oracle Cloud as well as all the Oracle engineered systems. It's important to know that we already have tens of thousands of enterprises that decided to use on their critical systems, Oracle Linux. So we have tens of thousands of enterprises supported with Oracle Linux. We already saw more than 5 million Docker Hub downloads. And coming back on the concept of Oracle as a contributor on different open source projects, it's also important to know that today Oracle is part of 2 different foundations as a platinum board member. So we are today part of the Linux Foundation as a platinum member, as well as the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So this is another testimonial that demonstrates the investment of Oracle in the open source ecosystem. Moving ahead, another important thing that I really like related to Oracle Linux, one of our targets today and even for the future is to always maintain the 100% compatibility with the Red Hat Enterprise Linux kernel. So at the end, on Oracle Linux, you have 2 different choices. You can decide to use the Unbreakable Enterprise kernel, so the kernel developed by Oracle, or you can also decide to use the Red Hat compatible kernel. What is the Red Hat compatible kernel? It's a 100% binary compatible kernel. And it's really useful at the end for customers that require this kind of option there, because maybe they have a vendor, or they have a software, or even hardware that require a specific kernel release coming from Red Hat. They have also this option on Oracle Linux. And that said, a quick introduction related to KVM. KVM support has been introduced years ago on Oracle Linux. But after that, more customers started to ask us an enterprise KVM management solution. So a solution able to manage more servers at the same time, so more KVM hypervisors, as well as the storage, networking, so a really enterprise solution. And also a solution able to be cloud ready, so able to grant different cloud roles, like administrators and users. And so based on this kind of requirement that we saw from our customers, we decided to move ahead, and we will see later at the end what Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager is. But you know, KVM is an hypervisor that today is available on different Linux distribution and even on different enterprise Linux distributions. So why Oracle Linux KVM? We think that one of the most important topic is again related to the hybrid cloud. If you want to run the same hypervisor on the public cloud as well as on your private or on-prem environment, Oracle Linux is really your choice. There is no difference between the KVM hypervisor running on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and the KVM hypervisor that you can run on-prem, right? And the other important thing is that into UEK 5, so the Unbreakable Enterprise Kernel Release 5, we addressed so many enhancements and so many bug fixes based on the experience and the feedback that we got from Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So Oracle Cloud is also, if you want, an Oracle Linux customer, right? A very important Oracle Linux customer. And the cool point is that you can leverage all those enhancements and those bug fixes by leveraging Oracle Linux 7. We worked a lot on KVM. We also introduced Virtual drivers, so the option to run Microsoft Windows supported and certified, as well as, again, Ksplice. So today, by Ksplice, you can continue to, and you have the option to install security fixes for kernel, hypervisor, and user space, both on the physical server as well on the VMs running on top. So based on the entire discussion, we decided that KVM module in Oracle Linux 7 with Unbreakable Enterprise Kernel Release 5 is our go-forward hypervisor. And coming back on the management solution, we decided to leverage and work and contribute on another open source project that is Overt. Overt is an open source project today available. It's a KVM management solution. We decided to work on this open source project. We will see later why. instead of building internally another possible KVM management solution. But again, another target that now we are going to address into OLVM is, again, the rapid application deployment for the full software stack. That means even for the Oracle products running on top of VMs, on top of KVM. So just a quick solution overview. At the end, we have the compute side of the solution based on Oracle Linux KVM, where we have Oracle Linux 7 with UEK5. And then we have the management solution based on Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. It's based on Overt, so the open source project Overt. We didn't fork the open source project. We just use it and work with it and contribute on it. So we are not going to fork. The huge difference is that Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager is integrated, tested, and supported by Oracle. As all the other options, as all the other Linux components available with Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager is available for free on yam.oracle.com and on ULN for our paying our customers with proper support subscription. It's available for free on yam.oracle.com, can be updated for free without any kind of problem. It has been announced on June 3rd. And the cool point here is that what we're going to show, or what Marcin is going to show later today, is that we already have a very cool backup solution for Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager, a solution that is also able to get backups on Oracle VM. Here a quick overview of what is Overt, so the open source project. At the end, it's a solution born years ago with the target to be a management solution for different hypervisors. Today, strictly and really speaking, Overt is really focused on KVM management. And it's a full-feature software targeted to support enterprise infrastructure and targeted to manage the entire enterprise infrastructure. OLVM, so announced on June 3rd, as already said, it's based on Overt 4.2.8, and the OLVM release is the same, so we are not going to use different release numbers. And so it will be even clearer for our customers which kind of release we targeted for the OLVM, so we are going to use the same numbers. Our first target had been to support all the features that today are there on Oracle VM 3.4, as well as add the support for further features, like, for example, snapshot capability, role-based access for the web interface. And again, integrated, tested, and supported by Oracle. So our QA teams worked a lot to verify all the features and all the possible issues related to Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. That said, just a quick mention on Oracle VM. We will continue to manage and maintain Oracle VM 3.4. Lately, we just announced the Oracle VM 3.4.6.1. We introduced the fourth digit in terms of maintenance releases for Oracle VM 3.4. Again, we will continue to maintain it. We are not going to leave our existing customers on Oracle VM alone. So we will continue to maintain, and the premier support date has been already extended to March 2021. That said, just a quick overview on the prices, just because it's important to know that while talking on Oracle Linux and virtualization, case splice, clustering, and so on, and then you have one unique support subscription that includes all those options. There is no hidden cost, there is no add-on price, or I want to leverage the clustering, okay, you have to pay this license. I want to get the virtualization, you have to get that option. No, we have one unique price, one unique support subscription that includes all the features and the support on all of them. That said, it's also important to know that we work a lot with different IHV, so different third-party hardware vendors, as well as independent software vendors, like, for example, Storware. Storware is one of the best partners that we worked with, mostly for backup solutions. We worked a lot in the past to get their solution able to get VM backups on Oracle VM. And lately, we also worked together to get their solution certifying and supporting Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. And now I'm going to hand over to Marcin that will show us this great solution dedicated to backups for different hypervisor ecosystem. Thank you, Marcin.
Thank you, Simon. I'll try to share my screen now. You should be able to see my presentation right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Marcin Kubacki. I'm Chief Software Architect at Storware. Today we are going to cover also the topic how to protect both Oracle VM and Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. So regardless of what actually you have installed or you're going to have installed, both of them can be protected. It's not only these two platforms, we support many others, so we can mix them together. And basically we have focused on these open source, non-mainstream platforms, and we are actually expanding with every single release. So more and more platforms are going to be supported at some point. Storware vProtect is independent data protection solution, okay? So it can use basically what you are going to give, some sort of storage, some sort of object storage. So it can be on-prem or in the cloud. You can use also other backup providers such as enterprise grade like Veritas, IBM Spectrum Protect, Dell EMC Networker. So technically, you can have multiple of them, and you can back up multiple platforms that we support to these already existing backup providers. We wanted to redesign completely backup, so that this is completely new web interface with new architecture with multiple data movers, so it scales well as well. We are not focusing only on virtual machines. We also do container, or let's say deployment as it is actually the proper name for OpenShift or Kubernetes terminology. Also applications or eventually the clouds as well. So currently it's AWS only. So high-level architecture looks like this. Basically, vProtect creates snapshots, export virtual environments from the left and stores them on the right. When I said that vProtect can act as the standalone solution, it's basically because of the file system-based backup provider, especially that we can easily enable video and enable the duplication and such storage. So it's always up to you what kind of backup provider you intend to use later to store your backups. Especially very important aspect for the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager is multi-node architecture. Depending on the strategy, you may have to, or you don't have to, depends, use multiple nodes. There are some strategies, especially in the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager, where you have to use virtual machine proxies, and you can put them on every single cluster that you already have in your data center. So that is actually, that can grow with your pool of servers as you need more resources. That having said, in many cases, even single node can handle quite a lot of workload. It's a matter of the hardware that you're using. So we have seen both single node handling terabytes of daily backup, even full backup with multiple threads simultaneously, and we have also seen environments where we had to use multiple nodes. So it's always about the infrastructure as well, but you can still push harder depending on how your infrastructure is performing. A little bit more deep dive. I don't want to investigate all of these aspects in here, but this diagram actually shows a few things. First of all, API is central point for the basically managing the solution itself. So we are using the same API, and we are actually exposing the same API to manage everything. So you can have vProtect as a part of your third-party system, or it's some self-service portal maybe, or orchestration engine. We recently even added Horizon support through such API. vProtect node handles basically all of the backups. It's a data mover. So here in this diagram, actually, you are able to see multiple sources. It can be virtual machine. It can be something in the cloud. It can be a container or deployment, to be more accurate, in especially persistent volumes, for instance. Or especially if you are focusing on the application level protection, imagine that you have Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager and applications installed in there. Sometimes you may not want to have snapshot-based backup. You prefer to use native mechanisms like native database backup commands to grab particular backup and have them, all of them, as a part of a single backup management solution, which later stores your backups in a single or multiple backup providers. Well, currently you have to choose which backup provider is the target of particular backup. Still, you can have multiple of them. We focus on the VM level or container level, it's not. We don't need an agent. It's not file level solution. So in most cases, we are focusing on the snapshotting and exporting data. We want, well, for most of the platforms, we support incremental backup, snapshot management capabilities. So if you would like to have snapshot created but not actually exported, that can save you time and unnecessary transfers over your network, but still you have some sort of additional recovery point. So vProtect will handle retention of such snapshots and automatically remove them according to your policy. Application backup, that's a generic mechanism. We have found that many of our customers use some sort of script or basically they invoke native backup commands by themselves. So we have actually quite easy generic way of plugging them into the backup workflow, and that gives you flexibility. So you can cover also some very custom applications with this mechanism. Already discussed in possible backup providers and the RESTful API, so we can skip that. In general, how do you use vProtect? So once you installed everything, first step is typically to connect your backup provider and connect your hypervisor or hypervisor manager. In this case, we are talking about Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager or Oracle VM. Both of them are managers. So you just provide URL to the API endpoint, everything is described, and credentials, basically. When you are synchronizing inventory, we gather information about the virtual machines, storage, etc. So now you're able to invoke all of the backup processes directly from the vProtect console. So if you would like to have it maybe tightly integrated with some external solution that you already have, we have example with the CloudForms, for instance, then you obviously have to use APIs to invoke them, or maybe, which we also provide, command line interface. Then you set policies, schedules, and backups are performed either manually or on demand. You can assign multiple schedules to the policy, so and you can automatically also assign virtual machines to the policies as well. So if you have multiple many VMs, maybe you don't want to specify a policy for each of these VMs. Maybe it's easier for you to just initiate inventory scanning, and during this particular task that we perform also the option. You have option to specify rules based on both virtual machine name, so we can specify some regular expressions on it, and tags. This is more important for the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager, as many administrators commonly use tagging in OVIRT-based installations. Restores, it's not only to the hypervisor back, we also are able to mount backups. so that you're able to grab individual files. Or if you prefer to save some specific Windows-based, maybe extended file attributes or permissions, it's maybe better to share them over iSCSI. So because we are able, you can just select which drives you are interested in and just give iSCSI IQNs that are permitted. There are several strategies that I want to discuss. The first one is not really related to the Oracle VM or Oracle Linux VM, but it gives you the idea that basically the process looks like exporting from external APIs or endpoints or SSH or whatever it is for particularly for specific hypervisor. So this is for standalone servers mostly, okay? In this particular case, we have some API, and we are able to simultaneously fetch data from multiple sources. And vProtect is able to load balance it so that it is going to optimize workload and not perform simultaneously all of the backups on a single hypervisor, rather to spread workload across multiple, so that is performing much better. In Oracle VM, and actually also in Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager API version 3, you are able actually to use export storage domain. That's the approach where we're actually asking for the backup and export process to be performed, and we are waiting for the data to be received on our staging space. It has several disadvantages, especially for the OLVM, Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. First of all, it's not going to be probably supported in the future, as this is going to be deprecated. But for Oracle VM, basically it's the only way supported right now. The other disadvantage is, first of all, that you need to have some export repository or storage domain. You have to do additional cloning of the VM during this process. And in case of OLVM, you will not have option to exclude certain drives. Well, obviously, over time, when OVIRT actually went with version 4, they offered new APIs, and at the same time, the recommended way of doing backups was to use disk attachment method. This basically means, what I previously said, that you may need more vProtect nodes. This means that you are installing vProtect node VMs, basically Linux with installed node, on each cluster. So in this case, we are snapshotting drives and connecting to this VM proxy, dumping data, and the process continues. Okay, so the backup is sent somewhere else. You have, in this case, disk exclusion support and no additional cloning required, no export storage domain configuration. So it is more complex backup process. It doesn't support incremental yet, as OVIRT doesn't have CBT yet. So once they have, probably Oracle Linux VM will also support this particular mechanism. We'll have ability to have incremental in this strategy. But actually, you can do incrementals in the OLVM already. It is because since version 4.2, which is basically the version which is based, which Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager is based on, you're able to export data directly through the Manager API. This allows, obviously, disk exclusion, obviously incremental, because we are able to grab individual snapshots. And you don't have to install node on each of the cluster, because we are talking directly to the manager. That having said, obviously, manager has its limits. So for larger scale, probably it would require more resources, better bandwidth, and so on. And that is why we have optimized it and provided yet additional options. So now we are obviously talking to OVIRT manager and request this snapshot, but not snapshot export in this case. This is wrong in this slide. We actually are grabbing metadata from there and directly fetching data from the hypervisor over SSH. This basically boosts a lot the backup process itself. So now the manager is not the bottleneck. And now we are able to to talk with this. This still requires disk image transfer API, because the restore process is exactly the same as in disk image transfer API. It needs to pass via manager, so that manager is able to create drives appropriately and so on. But backups process is significantly faster. And incremental backup is also supported in here. We receive sometimes questions about the backup consistency. So base protection is always crash consistent backup. However, if you want to enhance that for the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager, there is file system freeze option. So you can enable that on the VM level in vProtect. And if that is not enough for you, you can provide custom commands to quiesce, resume, something like this, some operations that take place over SSH directly before snapshot and after snapshot takes place. Snapshot management, that's essentially the policy where you would like to snapshot virtual machine but don't export data itself. We specify number of versions, number of days, for how long these snapshots have to be available on the hypervisor. And that's, well, obviously snapshots, they consume probably some, they can impose some impact penalty on the performance. However, still you can, if you don't use too many snapshots, this could be a perfect hybrid protection for the VM. So you not always have to export everything. You may just want to keep one more snapshot, maybe to have some extra recovery points without the need to export data. Application backup. So as far as the application backup, we have to explain two main definitions. So first of all, there is command execution configuration. Let me show it first. Basically, it is how do you backup your application, whatever it is. And by application, I mean that it can be there's some set of files, some database that requires some command to be executed. This command can be executed both on the node or on the over SSH, so you just need to provide credentials, and you need to describe if you would like to export data. It's not that obvious. Maybe sometimes you just want to invoke some process, not actually export any data. Sometimes you would like to read from set of files like with wildcard, maybe a directory, or just read directly from the stream, or like the output stream of the specific command. And once you have this, you later define these applications here, so instances of these applications, and you specify that this is my database 1. It uses, for instance, MariaDB backup command. This is my database 2, and it still uses the same command execution configuration. So you're able to define environmental variables that you're going later to use either in your scripts or commands. So that's basically the generic mechanism. We use, actually, we start with a very basic example with our own database backup. So that's one of the things that you can just enable on the vProtect, and you're ready to go and test how it's working. And later you can build on top or use your existing scripts. We're going to enhance that and provide more templates for different applications in the future. So obviously this mechanism is going to have more and more specific use cases. One of the use cases very commonly asked is, let's say, how to protect Oracle VM or Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager configuration. So not virtual machine, but the configuration itself. So basically this mechanism can also talk to your manager, grab appropriate config files or execute backup tool on the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager and later store it, let's say, in the Dell EMC networker. Because we support many different enterprise-grade backup providers, we also are able to extend their capabilities and have multi-tier backup solutions. So in this case, this is an example with IBM Spectrum Protect server. you're able to use then later to IBM to push data to the cloud pools or whatever you would like to use on the IBM Spectrum Protect site. On the other hand, similar integration is done with, let's say, Data Domain. Data Domain DDBoost file system plugin allows us to use on our side file system, but the duplicated one, having a very important capabilities as far as the optimizing your storage, but very important thing for the file system backup provider, so the one that can be used basically to make vProtect independent, is that we are able to use it both on our staging space and backup provider, and as a backup provider. So basically, it is optimizing this double copying, let's say, double write issue that you can face. So instead of having to wait until data is being pushed to the backup provider, basically vProtect will detect that staging and backup provider directories are actually reside on the same file system, so they can be moved, for instance. This boosts the backup process a lot, and because, well, it is a file system, like in here, we are also able to directly read data. So in cases where we don't have to merge any data or just need directly to import to the hypervisor or mount them or share them over iSCSI, if there is not such a requirement, so you don't use, let's say, incremental in this case, we are able to instantly attach or mount or import directly without having to copy or bringing back data to the staging space. And when we are talking about this staging space, it can also be used for a secondary tier. You can enable option to keep last backup locally. And now this means that vProtect obviously sends, especially important is when the cloud-based storage is used. Probably you don't want to wait for big VM to be restored from the cloud. So you can, in most cases, probably you're going to fetch last copy of your backup from the staging space. This diagram also, I want to talk about the S3. S3 is not only Amazon S3, okay? So in many cases, you may want to use local on-prem storage that happens to have S3 API. And if that's the case, IBM Object Storage or Scality, for instance, then technically we are able to use the same connector and use the same storage for backup purposes. We are ready for integration. It's in the past we've seen administrators that had some fun with the command line interface and wanted to automate a few things, but we always exposed our API so that you are able to do basically whatever vProtect is able to do directly by calling our API endpoints. And one of the examples that we have prepared is actually CloudForms implementation. So in the CloudForms portal, you are able to expose buttons like backup restore, or even do more, because this screenshot actually is a little bit older, without the need to give access to the vProtect console. Why to choose vProtect? So first of all, you can have single platform that backs up, that creates backups for multiple sources. Virtualization platforms support some custom applications. On the other side, you are able to use your existing backup platforms, backup providers. That's especially important when you don't want to change everything what you already have in your data center. So we don't force anyone to replace existing backup provider. We actually are flexible, so that's a freedom of choice. It's not only about the VMs, it's also about the applications, it's also about the snapshot management. It's simple to deploy. Basically, it's 2 RPMs or our virtual appliance. We are open for the integration. You have 2 options as far as the licensing is concerned, either per host or per VM, and especially that you can try free version up to 10 VMs for no charge at all, and you can play it with in your DC and see how it works. Give us some feedback. So that's one of the options that you also have. And in some cases also we really want to talk to cooperate with customers to get insight what are possible features that they are missing that they would like to see in the future releases. So you will see that actually there are several of these in demo. So let me just share the screen right now with the browser. Okay, you should be able to see my login screen right now. Okay, so let's start. That's basically the web interface, what we are providing, the central point of management. Here you can basically see some statistics, what is the, let's say, success rate, maybe some details about which particular backup has failed, or maybe it's successful. You're also able to see the current staging space. In my case, I have only one node currently in here, and I have single file system with the duplication enabled. So you are able to see that the duplication ratio, for instance, is around 80%. And I have some virtual environments already protected. So as I said previously, first step would probably to create a hypervisor manager entry. Here I have Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. Actually, I can use the same URL here and access, maybe without API, access the same manager in the secondary tab. So we're able to see how it looks like. In our small environment, I have just a single VM that we are going to backup, but obviously you can have more. We don't have to deploy, in this particular case, vProtect node on this infrastructure. We have used SSH transfer. So now, when I want to add such hypervisor manager, I provide credentials. And after I add, you are being asked if you would like to automatically index or synchronize inventory. This basically creates inventory synchronization task. Everything that basically node needs to be to do is sort of a task. So it can be export data, it can store data somewhere, it can restore, import, clean old snapshots, etc. So in our case, it has just connected and collected information about the cluster, storage, and obviously virtual environment. So here I have several other VMs, but I'm interested in the Oracle Linux machine that I have in here. I can browse details of the VM. I can have tags read from my Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. So here in the Oracle, I can tag instances, let's say backup policy 1 or 2. And when vProtect scans for them, he is able, for instance, to assign automatically to a specific policy. In my case, I have already VM assigned to daily backup policy. I see that some backups have been done in the past. These are smaller because obviously they are incremental. And I can also track timing of particular backups, so which phase took most of the time. So I can initiate now. I can, let's say that I want just incremental. I want to store it in file system that I have in here. And this creates an export task. Once the export task finishes, you are able to see, you will see that there is a store task that basically handles the storing objects in your backup provider. When you are creating incremental, vProtect will first of all needs to understand that you are going to use incremental feature. So he's leaving the snapshot on the hypervisor for future incrementals because CBT is not available yet. If vProtect doesn't have any incremental schedule assigned, then he's going to remove snapshot automatically. So here we can see in the snapshot tab that there is already one snapshot. Secondary has just been created, and you will see that they are going to be this is already current for next incremental, because it's basically it has been already stored, and now this one is going actually to be removed. So here in the events tab you can see that snapshot has been snapshot deletion has been already invoked, and creation of the next one as well. Okay, let's talk about the policies, because we probably are not going to manually back up all of the VMs. We are going to do two things: create policies and schedules. So policy basically defines how the VM is going to be backed up according to the rule, so where it is going to be stored and when. You can specify which virtual machines have to be protected, and according to your rules in here, you can either include or exclude certain VMs based on either their names or tags and clusters. So for instance, you would like to protect only VMs in certain clusters that have tag backup, for instance. Some examples of features that come also from our customers. Some bigger customers requested also to have ability to just fail rest of the backups if let's say some percentage of the backups have already failed. So if we constantly fail on the store phase, then probably something is wrong with the backup provider. Maybe it's better just to fail the rest of the backups and investigate why store fails all the time. So you can specify that, let's assume that 30% or 20% of backups failed on the store phase, just fail the rest of them. You can specify obviously priority. Based on the priority, vProtect is going to execute tasks in here in the console. Currently, I have just invoked a single backup, but you can imagine that you can have hundreds of the tasks in the console. So, and limited start window. Okay, this window that you can see in here basically means that tasks are going to be permitted to execute for execution during this period. So if only there are available threads according to your limits that you set already, then tasks have to be executed. But obviously you can schedule more VMs than actually you're able to process overnight. So that is why you have option to specify these limits, as well as the number of threads, simultaneous export threads, or store threads, depending on what you need. And optional, you have also option to specify start windows. This is for manual on-demand backup, but you can specify in the schedule later as well how long this particular window should be. So I want to initiate daily incremental. Maybe I don't have 300 minutes, maybe 60 would be enough to have all of them backed up. Schedules, you define schedules in here. If that is not enough for you, even though I believe it's quite flexible, you can, let's say, specify second Tuesday of the February, or let's say interval-based, like that's especially important for snapshotting, between 9 and let's say 5 p.m. You are able to snapshot every 2 hours. Maybe just during the weekdays, for instance, okay? So you can define specific schedules and later assign them to the policies. Snapshot management policy is much simpler. That's a schedule, sorry. Snapshot management policy is slightly different than the backup policy because basically the rule doesn't have to specify which backup provider, but you specify rather retention settings in here. So that's the only difference. And you later assign both of these policies, either virtual machine and snapshot policy to the virtual machine backup and snapshot management policy to the single VM. Okay, I see that my backup has already finished. So few options to restore later such virtual machine. So you can either restore it directly to the, well, let's say restore to the file system. That's not necessarily the most common scenario, but if you would like, we can just give you the backup files. You can also restore to the hypervisor manager. You need to specify which storage you would like to use for import, which cluster. Optionally is provide some name or format, disk allocation format. But if you would like to have more granular restore, you also are able to mount this backup and browse later either from web interface or directly on the node. So that is why I specify which node and in which location backup should be mounted. If you're using automatic backup, automatic mount for Linux-based guests, we are able actually to have single root file system mount. So all of the file systems within this particular backup are going to be mounted according to etc fstab. So that gives you a sort of feeling like you are inside the VM. For Windows, we are going to have separate directories. For each file system, you can also specify particular file systems that you would like to mount or share complete drive over iSCSI. If only it's in a compatible format, so we are able to expose it to the clients where you are giving just IQNs, and you are able to allow this host later to mount disk directly, let's say in the Windows machine. So that's the option for the Windows permissions, or maybe some file systems that are not supported yet. Here I have already mounted backup available, so I'm going there and I'm hitting browse button and I'm browsing directly the backup, and I'm able to grab some config file and download, let's say, that I just needed this particular file. Backup destinations. Here is the place where you actually find targets where you are able to store backups, and we have quite a lot already available. The most commonly used is file system, because we've just giving the either file system or if you'd like to use the duplication, we just need a block device like def SDC. We can optionally make it to be mounted, let's say vProtect data, it's our staging space, but let's assume that I want to store on the same file system in subdirectory my backups. So now I'm able also to use the same deduplication also on the staging space, just by giving vProtect data as the root directory, where I would like to enable the duplication on top of that. If that is not overridden, then basically only my backup destination path would be deduplicated. We also have an option to use encryption. That's especially important for connectors such as, let's say, Amazon, or basically all cloud platforms that we support. And obviously enterprise-grade backup vendors like IBM Spectrum Protect, Veritas, Dell EMC. So you can have multiple backups, assign specific nodes to specific backup destinations, and that is how you basically map from where to where you would like to backup your virtual machines or applications. And as far as the applications are concerned, here is the example of our database. I have vProtect DB command. Basically, it's running a simple script with one parameter. Behind the scenes, it is a MySQL dump command. So that's also a good example for you how to start with, let's say, MariaDB or whatever you have. This is going to be executed directly on the node. Grab a file from this certain location and later store whatever you would like. So I have also vProtect DB application defined. It is going to use this particular command execution, and I can define environmental variables in here. I have some tests to variable being defined just when the application, when this particular script is executed. So I don't need this particular one in this example. And view for the application is exactly the same as for the virtual machines. So you have the same feeling. You're able to track which backup stage actually took the longest. In this case, it is very small DB, so you can see that mostly it was actually waiting in the queue. When you would like to restore, you have two options. Well, basically, because you're responsible for what set of files we're protecting, so we are going to give you this package back, okay? But you have also two places where you can actually receive this data. You can either receive to the node, back to the node, like let's say a set of files or a single file in a specific directory, or you can restore to application, okay? This application needs to have ability to be to have SSH enabled. So if you have applications that back up something over SSH, you provide credentials for each of these applications, and such applications can be used here. So your data is going to be transferred directly to this particular, basically, host. And from now on, the restore process is what you are going to do on your own. Few words about the settings, actually. So email notifications, so daily reporting, how many backups have failed, or maybe everything is just fine. You have option to authenticate using LDAP, and one of the things that we also encourage people to use is Storware Insight. It basically allows us to have some insight into how the protection status is working in your infrastructure, and if we notice that something is wrong, we can have that information earlier, especially some information about what kind of version are you using, and what is the size of this environment. And if you would like to provide us additional information, you have additional button log upload. So this is going to automatically upload logs to Storware server. So you don't have really to do the same process like create tickets and later provide version information and later send us logs, because it can be done automatically for you.